Hello everybody, Rabbi Fishel Jacobs here. In this short video, we'll be discussing how the wife or a woman becomes a menstruant, in Hebrew a Niddah. In subsequent clips, we'll be discussing the purity cycle. The purpose of this series is not to be an extensive or involved or in-depth class or commentary or anything of that nature on Shulchan Aruch. It's not that. Over time, I've seen that a lot of people call me or write to me asking me for the simple basics of any given subject, and that's what this series is all about, just the basics. After this, or at any given time, anybody can write to me or call me personally. My contact information is written elsewhere here. Everything is anonymous, and I'm always happy to help. So let's get started. This will be ad-libbed, and part of it will actually be read or used using my book, Family Purity. Okay. A woman becomes a menstruant, in Hebrew, a Niddah, when blood leaves the womb. Okay, that's very important. This is based on the verse in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 18. And she revealed the source of her blood. The word source refers to the womb. That's where the infant is formed. And from that very place is where menstrual bleeding comes from. And the reason that we're accenting that is because bleeding from other places, for example, the vagina or the external side of the cervix. There are other issues that cause bleeding, and you need to ask your rabbi about those things. Okay, we're discussing specifically blood which comes from the cervix and or womb. The wife or a woman becomes a Niddah regardless of the reason that the blood leaves the womb, whether it's because of the normal or natural monthly cycle, or it could be an internal gynecological examination, which involved penetration of the uterus, or if the wife gave birth, or spotting. There could be numerous reasons for that. Spotting can be caused because of an infection or an injury. Okay, again, this is not meant to be an exhaustive discussion. We'll just mention the main points. Even a minuscule amount of bleeding, which comes from the uterus, causes the Niddah state. It doesn't matter if the blood which came out was moist or dry, and even if there's no sensation of bleeding or opening of the uterus. The state of the state of being a menstruant in Hebrew and Niddah is applicable even before marriage, as is the spiritual excision of both for having relations at that time. The other prohibitions which are associated with Niddah, including kissing, hugging, and affectionate contact, also apply to an unmarried woman. And the additional prohibitions which apply to being alone with a woman who is a Niddah, or any woman really, applies at this time also. There's no minimum age for a woman to become a Niddah. Even a girl that's just begun menstruating can become a menstruant. From my book, we'll be skipping a couple of sub-subjects here because they're not that applicable on a daily basis. Needed through examination. If the wife performs an internal examination using a previously examined clean cloth and discovers a stain of any size, she entered the Niddah state. Gynecological issues. The sages asserted there could be no opening of the uterus without blood flowing. This applies when something is inserted into the uterus as well. for example, in a medical instrument, and not only when something is expelled, such as during menstruation. So some gynecological examinations do penetrate the uterus using medical instruments, and in those situations, almost always the Niddah state will apply. And in those situations, even if there's no bleeding. Typically that happens when an IUD is inserted or taken out, and then an Orthodox rabbi should be consulted. Generally speaking, in a medical examination, using just the fingers does not cause the Niddah state. In other words, the fingers don't reach that far in, and they don't cause the Niddah state. If blood is found following this, though, you should speak with your Orthodox rabbi. We'll finish off here with some additional purity issues. During menstruation, it's customary in certain circles and certain communities to refrain from attending synagogue, looking at a Sefer Torah, or praying while standing in close proximity to friends. This custom or these customs are in the category of additional purity, and they're not based on prohibition. Therefore, she's permitted to attend synagogue if abiding by this will cause her anguish. For example, during the holidays, when everyone attends synagogue, when she is with her son or daughter, when visiting synagogue is related to her giving birth. In those situations, there's no need to be strict about attending synagogue during Niddah. At home, however, even during menstruation, women pray, make kiddush, and say all of the blessings. Okay, so that's our summary here. So just to summarize, just to sum it all up, the menstrual cycle starts when blood exits from the womb or the cervix. Doesn't really matter what the reason is. It could be the natural menstrual cycle. That's the normal way that things happen, or insertion or removal of something like an IUD, or it could be an infection or spotting. Giving birth causes the Niddah state. Niddah is applicable before or after marriage. Even a young woman before marriage, as soon as she started menstruating, the Niddah applies. We saw certain additional customs of stringency, not to go to synagogue or not to see a Sefer Torah. We mentioned that those are additional stringencies, and they're not based on prohibitions. If it causes the wife anguish, she doesn't need to. She doesn't need to keep that custom. Okay, so here we have it. That's, in a nutshell, the idea of Niddah. Again, in subsequent clips, we'll be discussing the purity cycle. If any questions come up, please give me a call. My contact information is found elsewhere here. Or email me or call me. I'm always happy to help. And looking forward. Take care. This is Rabbi Fischel Jacobs again. Take care.